Will the Water and Infrastructure Committee of June 30, 2025, please come to order? The time is now 1:32 p.m. May I ask that all participants please silence all noise-making equipment? I'm your chair, Tom Cook. Members, per the Sunshine Law, please identify by name who, if anyone, is in the room, vehicle, or workplace with you today, exclusive of minors. Before I begin, I would like to also ask the department representatives who have joined online to please also turn on your cameras when it's your turn to speak. Now I'd like to introduce the committee members. Committee Vice Chair Yukile Sugimura.
Good afternoon, Chair. Looking forward to a productive meeting. Thank you.
Councilmember Gabe Johnson. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair, council members, community members. There's no testifiers here at the Lanai District Office. And I'm here at the district office with Roxanne, the Rockstar Marita. Thank you.
Councilmember Tasha Kama is excused for this afternoon. Council Chair Alice Lee, good afternoon.
Boa tarde, because we're not going to be using bom dia this morning.
Oh,
Because the morning, that's only for
It's
morning.
afternoon.
Yeah, for afternoon is boa tarde.
Councilmember Tamara Paulton.
Aloha winala kaku and Bone Party kaku streaming live and direct from the West Maui Residency Area office here in the historic burn zone, and I have with me one unnamed canine minor who shall remain unnamed. Thank you.
And Councilmember Kiani Rollins Fernandez, who we have in the house. Good afternoon.
Aloha winala kako, aloha winala chair. Happy to be here in person. Special aloha to the OPO in the back for their civic engagement education today. And there are currently no testifiers at the Molokai District Office. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you. And Councilmember Shane Sinisi. Good afternoon.
Aloha, Chair, and bon tarde. Here at my home office, here by myself, and there are no testifiers in Hana, Chair.
Councilmember Nohilani U. Hodgins is online.
Hi, Chair. Hi, everyone. I'm here. I'm at my private residence. I do have 3 minors with me this afternoon, and I'm looking forward to your meeting. Thanks, Chair.
And, okay, I would also like to say that there's currently no testifiers in the Kihei Regional Office, but we have people on standby. From the Department of Public Works, Director Jordan Molina is here.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair and committee members.
And from Office of Recovery, Managing Director Josiah Nishita may be joining us. Administrator John Smith also may be joining us. From the Department of Water Supply.
Aloha, Chair.
Pardon? They're here.
Aloha, Chair. This is John.
Okay. Can't see on my screen, sorry about that. From Department of Water Supply, Director John Stuffelbein.
Aloha, Chair.
We have Orthain Asidura from the Fiscal Officer, and Robert DeRobos, Planner 6 from the Department of Water Supply.
Aloha, Chair.
Chair.
Thank you.
From Corp Counsel, we have Deputy Corporation Counsel Caleb Rowe.
Good afternoon, Chair.
From OCS, our committee staff, Keone Hurdle, Jared Pasquale, Lori Ann Tengan, Carla Nagata, and Jean Pohipaka. Sorry about that. Please see the last page of the agenda for information on meeting connectivity. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we have 2 items on today's agenda. Y13 authorizes the acquisition of several properties in Lahaina for roadway extensions, and Y8 amends the water code to establish a new water rates for preservation and restoration of native species habitats. Members, if there are no objections, I would like to take testimony after receiving opening comments on Y13 and Y8.
No
No
objections.
objections.
Thank you, members. Let's begin with our first item. Members, Y13 relates to Resolution 25-129 entitled Authorizing the Acquisition of 1.72 acres identified for real property tax purposes as tax map keys 2, 4, 6, 027, 027, and 029, 030, and 041. 2, 4, 6, 027, 026, 028, 033, and 040, and 2, 4, 6, 016, 041, situated at Lahaina, Maui, Hawaii, for up to $1,950,000, exclusive of closing costs and expenses under subsection 3.44.015 Maui County Code. The resolution's purpose is to authorize the county's acquisition of 1.72 acres in Lahaina, identified across 9 tax map keys for up to $1,950,000 plus closing costs and expenses. As noted in the resolution's body, these parcels are needed for the Kahua Street and Dickinson Street roadway extension projects. The Department of Finance submitted the preliminary title reports to the council on June 4th, 2025, which is posted as Granicus item number 5. Members, I propose CD1 version of the resolution with non-substantive revisions and a minor correction to the total acreage that has been posted as Granicus item number 6. At this time, Director Molina, would you like to provide any opening comments?
Yeah. Good afternoon. I'm Jordan Molina. I'm the Director with Public Works. Thank you, Chair and committee members, for the opportunity today. So before you is another step towards implementation of our long-term recovery plan as it relates to roadway connectivity and evacuation routes, to pursue land that supports the development of our Kahua Street extension and the Dickinson Street extension through this area of Lahaina. It also supports road widening anticipated along Mill Street in this area. Before I proceed further, I guess I just want to give a mahalo to the staff that's been working on this effort. We are scrambling to go as fast as we can on several fronts. One is to seize opportunities as they present themselves, and 2 is to get ahead of rebuilds that are coming online to avoid conflicts with our projects and people recovering and getting back home in Lahaina. So we've been working expeditiously to capitalize on this opportunity. Another need this site presents to us is our ability to work with HECO on relocating their existing substation off of Lahaina Luna Road, which is in direct conflict with the alignment of our Kahua Street project. That facility has been a big driver of how we move forward with Kahua, and now with this opportunity to move some things around, we really like that opportunity to be explored with this purchase. We are asking today for the authorization to continue negotiations with the landowner up to their asking price of $1.95 million, and look forward to answering any questions from the committee today. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Molina. And Managing Director Nishida or Mr. Smith, before you begin our discussion, let's see if anyone would like to provide testimony for Y13. Staff, are there any testifiers?
Chair, there's no individual signed up to testify. Would you like me to do a last call?
Please.
If there's anyone in the chamber or on Teams who would like to testify, please come down to the podium or unmute yourself on Teams. This is last call. The countdown is 3, 2, 1. Seeing none, Chair, no one has indicated that they wish to testify.
Members, seeing that there are no individuals wishing to testify, without objections, I will now close oral testimony.
No objections.
No objections.
As a reminder, written testimony will continue to be accepted into the record. Members, before we begin discussion, the discussion portion, I want to inform you that I intend to defer this item to the council meeting on July 8th. The department and the Office of Recovery would like to move forward with this acquisition to the parcels as quickly as possible. This item was slated for discussion at the WAI committee meeting on June 16th. However, the appraisal was not completed until June 26th. A copy of the appraisal has been transmitted to the committee and can be found on Granicus as item number 7. I'm proposing 2 rounds of 3-minute questions per member. Are there any objections? Thank you, members. Let's begin discussion. Committee Vice Chair Sugimura.
Thank you. So the appraisals came in and it's less than the purchase price?
Director.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
And explain, could you? Because often we don't do that. Or justification.
Yeah, I
pay
mean,
more.
I'm sure you guys are aware of the unique circumstances with land in Lahaina. And so we have a discrepancy between what our market appraisals came back with their assumptions and what the landowner is asking for currently. And happy to engage in more detail, but we are in open negotiations, so I'd be cautious on how much to divulge in open session. Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair. Staff didn't note your closing of public testimony. Would you mind please closing it?
Could you, you have to
Staff,
speak up?
staff didn't note your closing of public testimony. Would you mind please closing it? Thank you.
Okay, I thought I just did. We're
Yeah,
closing
I
public
thought so.
testimony.
Yes.
No objections.
No objections. And receiving written. Okay.
So continuing,
So if I could then, Chair, so I guess maybe whatever you could share, and then if we need to go into exec session, that's probably the best if you're in
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
negotiations.
So in reviewing the appraisal report, our needs, the land climate out in Lahaina, in discussing with administration, despite the discrepancy, we are comfortable moving forward with negotiations up to that asking price. There's still opportunity to work on that, but in the anticipation, we're not able to. We think it's still worthwhile for the benefits and the opportunities it presents to move forward with this acquisition. Thank you.
Okay, understand. Thank you.
committee member Johnson, questions for the director?
Thank you, Chair. I'm very familiar with Dickinson Street, and I'm trying to look at it on the map. I saw the maps, but it's still hard for me to really see exactly where. Can you maybe just, I'm on Google Earth right now, but maybe you can describe it? Where exactly is it? You know how we go like next to the, give me a landmark, I think, because all the maps just don't make sense.
Yeah, thank you, Member Johnson.
Across from David Marlow.
Yeah, across from David
across
Mall
from the Mall?
Apartments, at the corner where there's the Aloha gas station and heading Malka.
Okay, I know that area. Thank you for that. I was looking at those maps, and I'm just going to ask. So thank you for that. Now, this is primarily going to be used as an evacuation route. Is that correct, Director?
The project being supported with the land is for Dickinson Street development, which we're gonna develop into a full collector road with ultimately providing another connection to the Lahaina bypass. And so this is that first segment that gets us off Honopilani Highway, heading Malka.
I got you. Okay, thanks for that clarification. Are there power lines above that property right now? Are there power lines? Because I know you mentioned ECO's transformer, I think.
Yes, there are both distribution and transmission lines through that area.
Is there any intention on burying those power lines on our property, or it probably cannot? I don't know, because of the up and down, or I don't know. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, Director.
Yeah, so generally we won't be burying transmission lines because of those size of infrastructure required. But distribution systems are typically undergrounded, and so with our roadway projects, we would look to incorporate that undergrounding with our roadway projects.
Okay, so when you do the roadway, you'll underground those power lines. Is that correct?
yeah, we're going to move in that direction, providing we can get the funding needed to support those costs.
Where would you get those fundings from? The county, or is there any other pots of money?
Yeah, so primarily these are county projects, so it'd be county funded, with us also seeking to supplement with any federal funding programs that may be available to support that effort.
Do you have any particular federal fundings that you know of, or?
We're still working with Federal Highways to see if their funding programs support that cost of undergrounding. Another potential is some of the CDBG-DR that I believe is allocated towards infrastructure, which could support undergrounding as well. And we would need to explore further if any programs, any other programs are out there that could help. But we are in communication with HECO, as they also have access to various programs that could help support these projects and their efforts to underground infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay, great. Love to learn more as you guys move along. And my time's up. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Council Chair Lee, any questions for the director?
Yes, I didn't have a chance to look at the appraisal. How much higher is it than what how much lower is it than what we're paying for?
410,000, or about 27%.
We're paying 410,000 and it's appraised for what?
No, sorry, it's the appraisal price is 6.
Oh, it's higher than what we're paying.
The appraisal came lower than the asking price.
Oh, lower than the asking price.
The asking is 1.95.
And the appraisal is what?
164.
Chair,
It's about 300,
the appraisal came in at 1.54.
54, excuse me.
154. Okay. Well, this is essential, right?
Yeah, I mean, it borders 3 of our streets. It involves the substation, and it involves also multiple property owners that are also affected. And so one of the key opportunities is our ability to negotiate with those other landowners who we also need land from, without, displacing anybody.
So who's the landowner?
There's several individual landowners that own properties in that area. So I think there's 5 or 6 different property owners that are potentially being affected by our roadway extension projects.
I see. Thank you.
Member Paulton, questions for the director?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director Molina. I guess my main questions are, the shape of the lots. I see the connected portion and the one that is in between 2 of, I guess, either Hope Builders or Wainee Homes that also own it. The non-contiguous parcel, what are we planning to do with that? And also that it's M2, some of it is M2 and ag right across from low-income housing. Is there any plans to do heavy industrial noxious uses? Or could redemption centers happen on there, like something that the community would like versus noxious usage of M2 zone land? And do we have to change the ag zoning to make the escape route or the M2 zoning?
Director?
Okay, let me take bites at that. The proposed uses are undetermined at this point, except for our parcel or the parcel being considered where we're looking at using that site for the relocation of the HECO substation. We don't need zoning changes for the roadway itself, but depending on the footprints needed, we might have to shift some of that M2 to cover HECO's needs, but we think we can fit within the existing footprint based on the preliminary discussions.
So the non-contiguous parcel that you're looking at acquiring, you want to move the HECO substation to that parcel?
No, so that non-contiguous one to the south of Dickinson is a potential alignment for Kuhua. if we take a Mackay alignment, and it is also a potential for land exchange with some of the other property owners that involved with the Kuhua alignments.
And then, so the relocation of the Miko substation, would we be the broker to trade land with Miko, or what happens to the land that the Miko substation is on?
Correct, because we need that space for Kuhua extension. So
Oh, I see,
they're
I see.
collaborating with us to pursue this opportunity to move that substation and remove that conflict for the roadway.
And Hiko is on board.
Yeah, what is pressing is they need to get clarity so they can move forward with their design. And so that's part of the urgency for this request, is needing to provide HECO that clarity so they can commit to that relocation to us.
And the money is being used to acquire these lands do you know if it's 2025 fiscal year or 2026 fiscal year monies?
I understand it to be the 2025 funding in the CIP projects under OOR.
Oh, okay, so we have till December on that money because it's CIP.
Correct.
Okay, and then when you say yet to be determined on the lands that are not part of roadways, how will it be determined, and will there be adequate outreach?
Yeah, so large portion of that is for this HECO exchange, and then the balance is for exchange with these property owners that abut the area, more to the Mauka of these parcels were being considered. We have been communicating with those individuals over the last several months to gauge just their interests, their needs, where they're at with rebuilds, because we already have 4 or 5 parcels that are either almost completed with construction or in construction. And so we're working around, not trying to affect those people, or to see which one of them have an appetite for potentially relocating to accommodate the public infrastructure. So we've touched base with everybody in that neighborhood directly to, like I said, to find the path of least resistance to go forward with these projects. Thank you.
Okay, for next round, it will be about the change in zoning if they're gonna move their house. We don't build single-family homes on M2, right? Or ag.
Okay.
So next time.
Next time. Member Rollins Fernandez, any questions?
Mahalo, Chair. Aloha, Director. Mahalo for being with us. I was trying to look on the map so is the intention for it to connect to the bypass or just get closer to it?
It's the full-on extension for Dickinson is tied in with Kamehameha School's master planning project.
Okay. So
So-
in conjunction with,
Yeah.
because
We don't know exactly the alignment going Mauka at this point.
Yeah.
Initially, back in the 90s, the plan was to take it straight up. And that loop connector from Lahaina Luna Road was going to be the terminus for Dickinson. With Kamehameha School's plan, they've considered a more southern terminus to move the connection more towards the aquatic center end of the bypass. So that end of the project is still up in planning, but as far as where we're going to get from, the highway up through the neighborhood that's there now, this is the alignment we would have to
is the
take.
intention for it to be of 4 lanes?
No, just 2 lanes.
2 lanes.
We don't have, at least for the type of function this road would serve, we wouldn't have the need for a 4-lane road.
Okay, so it would go all the way up to Kamehameha Bishop Estate land,
Correct.
and then from there, we would figure out to the
Yeah, so it's either gonna
bypass.
head further south, up to the bypass in that area. At least that's what the tentative plan is. And again, the original plan was to send it directly Mauka. But we do have some challenges on where Kuhua intersects with Dickinson, because our intersections require just larger footprints, and then we start getting into impacting those properties. So we're still navigating kind of the best alignment that, minimizes the effect to those property owners in that area.
Okay, mahalo, Chair.
Member Sinitsi, questions?
Some of my questions were answered. No questions, sir.
Thank you. Councilmember Hodgins.
Thank you, Chair. I also have no questions. Happy to support.
Thank you. So my only question is kind of clarification. Director, you said it's a collector road.
Yeah,
So-
that's correct. So collector roads function to connect to two larger roads, in this case, Honopilani Highway and the Lahaina Bypass. And it would be inclusive of your sidewalks and bike lanes, full roadway standard is the intent.
Okay, thank you. Members, is there a need for a second round of questions? Member Paulton and then Member Johnson.
Thank you. So, from what you said, Nico substation relocation, is that onto the M2 zone property and that's an appropriate zoning is M2 for the substation?
Correct, and it currently sits on an M2 parcel.
Okay, and then the ones that you were saying that you would do like a land swap in Kuhua, like I guess for some of the collector roads to go through, I don't know if it's Aki Street or whatever. If it's zoned ag or M2, are we just doing a straight up swap or are we gonna change the zoning so they could build a house like for like zoning for them?
Director?
Yeah, so with this purchase, there is some ag lands that we think we can utilize to accomplish these exchanges. We anticipate having to facilitate some subdivision actions to make that work. But the goal would be to try and keep them in that area and like for like with ag. Now, if that somehow doesn't work out, then we'll be in that same process of negotiation with them to figure out what the alternatives would be. Of course, we're going to have to maintain value for value proposal, and that ultimately is going to come back to council to authorize those exchanges.
So the Kuhua camp properties that you're looking at exchanging are zoned ag or they're zoned residential?
Just to clarify, I wasn't referring to those residential properties at this point. It's Kuhua within this area that we're talking about. So there's these tiny separate lots that were established, and so those are being affected that we hope to exchange with some of the portions of ag land we're seeking to acquire. But those Kuhua lots could be considered as alternatives for exchange if for whatever reason we cannot reach agreement with the lands being considered with this acquisition.
Okay, I kind of feel like Peter Martin should just give you those two triangular pieces. I mean, what is he gonna do with that, really? What can you do with that? But the other lots, the one non-contiguous one that has the lots on either side, did they not want to get rid of it, or we don't want it?
You referring to the parcel the south of Dickinson?
I believe so. There's only one non-contiguous
Yeah.
one, and it's the same landowner has lot number here and a lot number here. Were they not open to getting rid of more of the parcels?
I think we're in discussions for everything in that corner. Call it the corner of Dickinson and Mill. Behind there is a separate negotiation that's we're not a part of yet, but we are looking at those lands as well. And then to the north is a different landowner. So within this area, we are looking at everything that West Maui Land and Hope Builders has at this point. Everything else has been sold to private parties.
And then the other industrial area on the other side with the smokestack on top, is that still under discussion with the other private buyer, or are they open? Or that's not agendized, probably?
It's not agendized, but we are talking on those lands as well because of the other side of Kuhua extension, as well as Lahaina Luna widening and consideration for extending Papaloa up to Aki Street, and even potentially bringing Mill across to Papalawa as well. So yeah, those are also in discussions.
Okay, good. I did have one other question about M2, but we'll come back.
Okay. Member Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to follow up on my first round of questionings. In the Lahaina Community Engagement Summary Report in 2024, and that we conducted as a county, engaged 3,833 people, and 85% of the residents wanted to move utilities underground, making the #1 top priority for long-term planning. And #2, at 78%, was to connect streets between neighborhoods to help with evacuation routes. I think this project kind of could check both boxes if you guys get creative and look at all those funds that you were talking about earlier. My question is under the CBGDR monies, there was like a resiliency section. Would burying power lines be considered resiliency, proper use of the funds?
Member Johnson, I have to defer to Officer Recovery for clarity on that.
Yeah. Okay, is Mr. Smith here? Or?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
Sorry, I'm on an iPad, so excuse my screen. So we are developing the programs under hazard mitigation for CDBG-DR right now. And we're working with Director Molina and Hawaiian Electric and other shareholders in this overall effort for undergrounding. I think it's premature to say that we could just fund all the undergrounding for these roads, but it is definitely something that we're aiming towards.
Okay.
With that fund under those, that hazard mitigation approach. I can say that for right now. Thank you.
I really appreciate that. That's great to hear, Mr. Smith. So back to Director Molina. After the roads are built and everything, do you have an estimate of how much land is left?
I don't have that offhand right now because it's portion of HECO substation site as well as the road widening. So I'd have to get back to you on those specifics.
Okay. Well, I'm just, thinking aloud here, but if there is enough room in its zoned ag land, some of it's zoned ag land, that section that is zoned ag, maybe hooey up with the Department of Agriculture and see what they, maybe they can jump in on this, and all of a sudden you have community gardens or something, of that nature is what I just wanted to voice that. But if there is land left, let's use it and make a green break and all the good things that would come with that. But just wanted to throw that for the record, and I appreciate all you guys' hard work. No further questions, Chair.
Chair, if I may.
Director.
Thank you for that comment, Member Johnson, because we are, with all these purchases, are considering other county needs. One of the big ones, of course, for us is with the bus and planning ahead for their site needs as we talk to these landowners. The Dropbox Center for recycling is also top of mind in these discussions. Great. And yeah, good plug on the ag uses with Department of Ag. Thank you.
Well, I like that you're also considering, multiple uses of this land besides just the road. So that's wonderful news, Director. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Any further need for questions?
I think Member Paulton has her hand up.
Member Paulton?
Thank you. I guess I was wondering about how much acreage or portion thereof the MECO substation needed, and if it would encompass the entirety of the M2 zoning.
So HECO needs approximately, I think it's 36,000 square feet. So it's a large portion of the M2 they're gonna need. I can't tell you what the balance might be, but we're still working with them to kind of understand exactly how their site layout is gonna have to work. So those details are still in progress. Thank you.
Is there a commitment from the county if there is excess balance to not use noxious uses of the M2 category, like directly across from David Malo low-income housing?
That parcel is privately owned at this point, so I'm not sure the extent to which there's a public engagement process for those parcels to come in. Yeah, so that one's a little trickier, but as for what the county owns, you know, obviously you guys are involved in authorizing the funding for whatever activities are proposed. And right now, like I said, unless people think the bus is noxious, which I'm sure some may, yeah, those are the top considerations we're thinking about is the bus and a potential recycling center.
I think those would be great near David Malo. The one that is directly across and on the other side of Lahaina Luna, there's no appetite to sell to the county.
There is a willingness to work with us, so we I guess we don't have as much as a time pressure with those discussions as we do with this one right now. So, but those are still being pursued actively.
And how did we talk to HECO about how long it would take to rebuild their substation? And is it preventing folks from moving back because of electricity needs?
It's not a barrier at this point for rebuilds. One of the urgent things they're trying to get clarity on is being able to move the temporary substation from Lahaina Rec Center and return that site back to the county. That's kind of the more immediate driver. And they also have a schedule where they're trying to meet. Don't quote me on exactly, but basically they need to get started by the end of this year, being that they have a commitment on the land to be able to deliver that rebuild within their schedule.
And so the substation that's off of on the south side of Lahaina Luna Road, we would swap out the 3,600 square feet about, and then you said that land would be used as a connector?
Yeah, so portion of that parcel would have to come through with the roadway, and then there'll be some leftover lands that can be considered as part of how we can create spaces for the county needs we have in Lahaina.
I mean, that would also be a nice bus stop or a redemption center or something less noxious, but are we planning to keep it M2 zone?
At this point, because we don't have those detailed development plans worked out, we're not gonna be changing zoning until, you know, we clarify the need that's gonna justify those changes, because it's gonna be a lot of awkward parcel shapes and awkward zoning boundaries. And so once we have better clarity on what those, you know, designs drive for those sites, then we'll likely anticipate those zoning changes as needed.
Can bus stop and redemption or recycle center be on M2 or ag?
I know M2 is okay. I'm not quite sure about ag.
Okay. But you guys would take care of it if that has to happen.
Yeah, because
Or somebody in the county.
Yeah, if there's support
Not
for
us.
these sites, we would come through to try and request those changes.
Okay, like administration initiated.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, members. If there are no further questions from anybody that I can't see, okay. Members, this item will be posted on the agenda for the July 8th, 2025 council meeting. If there's no objections, the chair would like to defer this item.
No objections.
Thank you, members, and thank you, Director Molina, Managing Director Nishita, and Mr. Smith for being here today. Now let's move on to our next item. Staff, if we can take like a 5-minute recess. Will the WAI Committee meeting of June 30th reconvene? It's now 2:16. Members, the last item is Bill 56, entitled "A Bill for an Ordinance Amending Section 14.10.010 Maui County Code to establish a new water rates for preservation and restoration of native species habitats." The purpose of this bill is to authorize discounted water rates for the Department of Water Supply consumers who are using water primarily for the purpose of conserving or restoring native Hawaii species habitats without any associated commercial activity. At our June 4th, 2025 meeting, the committee transmitted a follow-up letter to the department for clarification on several implementation details, including the definition of native Hawaii species habitat, rate structure, application requirements, and eligibility criteria. Members, since our last meeting, a proposed CD1 version has been drafted and is before you today. This is Granicus item number 12 for your reference. At this time, Director Stuffelbein, would you like to provide any opening comments?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just briefly, this bill was thought of to address a very specific situation. We had some applicants come in, or some water users come in, who are doing this very, we think, important work of restoring and preserving the native habitat. And they did not qualify for the ag rate. They applied for ag rate, and since they're not a commercial agricultural operation, they didn't qualify. And so they would have had to pay quite a bit for their water. They would have to pay the typical general rate for water as opposed to the ag rate. So we felt that this was beneficial for the community and beneficial for the watershed and ultimately kind of the water department. So we came up with a special rate for just this specific category. And we wanted to make sure it was not abused and it was limited to a very specific issue, which is organizations that are nonprofits or community trust, and organizations whose specific mission is the preservation and restoration of native Hawaiian habitat. And then that we would require them to submit a plan for how they plan to operate, including how much water they're going to use and their best management practices. We would be delighted to consult with anyone in terms of assisting us to determine what a native species is, especially the Department of Oiwi Resources and others as well. We proposed this rate be the same as the Tier 2 residential rate. And so if there are minor incidental uses on the property, such as a building, they would be paying the residential Tier 2 rate, which is what probably they would obviously be paying anyway. We do support the amendments, and we'd be glad to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. At this time, staff, are there any testifiers?
Chair, staff isn't seeing anyone signed up to testify on this item. Would you like me to do a last call?
I see someone walking down.
Okay.
I see Luna Ho'omolo Cook in the chair. Aloha Avakea. Aloha Director Stuffelbein. I kind of, JC Law from Wahakoa Ahupua'a. I noticed that I seem to, unless I'm like reading these things more closely, the agendas for the committees, I see more details in the description. So I just wanted to thank Nali Mahana, especially under description number 2, where they say the 7 different things that are that this bill is proposing. Thank you, Mr. Cook. I agree with this one.
Staff, okay. Members, any clarifying questions for our testifier? Seeing none. Staff, is there anyone else wishing to testify?
Chair, there's no other individual signed up to testify, so I'll do a last call for oral testimony. This is last call. Please come up to the podium or raise your hand on Teams if you would like to testify. The countdown is 3, 2, 1. Seeing none, Chair, no one has indicated that they wish to testify.
Okay, members, seeing that there are no more individuals wishing to testify, without objections, I will now close oral testimony. As a reminder, written testimony will continue to be accepted for the record. Members, I'm proposing 2 rounds of 3-minute questions per member. Are there any objections? Thank you, members. Let's begin our discussion. We'll start with Vice Chair Sugimura.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Director. And I did meet with a nonprofit that is interested in this. And I wondered how you would determine, because they have lots and lots of land, and how would you determine what is appropriate and how do they meet the criteria and those details that make a difference?
Director.
Yes, Chair. Yeah, that would be based on the plan. They have to submit a plan saying how they would use this water and give us the details, and then we would take a look at the plan and find out on what lands they're proposing to use to do this particular very important work, or conservation and restoration work, and that would be how we would determine it based on evaluation analysis of their plan.
And they would be issued a separate water meter.
Yeah, if they needed a second one, yeah, if they just had one water meter and it covered the lands that were covered, that would be fine. If they needed a separate one, we could issue a second meter, yes.
Oh, so that's why they're being charged at the secondary rate. Is that why?
Right, they're being charged at the rate simply to give them a break, give them to allow them to, because again, we think it's an important function, so we're giving them a break instead of having to charge, instead of having to pay the full general rate, which is quite a bit higher.
Okay. So, and the native Hawaiian plants, how do we get that definition, or how do they qualify with the correct plants as defined?
Right, so as, the bill actually specifies what a native Hawaiian plant is, and we have a number of resources we can go to determine whether a native qualifies as a native plant. We do a lot of work, as you know, with nonprofits that help us recover watersheds. And so in our planning section, we have some pretty good expertise in what makes native plants. And, we have, we spend 4% of our budget, almost 4% of our budget restoring the watersheds. And so one of the big elements of that is to encourage native plants and start, reducing the amount of invasive species. So we do have some expertise there, but we would also be able to look to others to help us, evaluate the proposals, like the conservation plans.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate this because the nonprofit that I met with is upcountry, and they had quite a lot of land and impacted through wildfire, and restoration is very important. So thank you very much. I support this, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson, questions for the director?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Director. Always good to see you. Thank you for taking time to spend with us today. I'm just going to jump right into questions. So who exactly are we talking about here? Which nonprofits specifically? Do we have a list? Are there people that we don't know that are out there that or you might expect a lot of applicants?
So at this point, there are two that we know that would qualify, that have submitted applications, but anyone who met the criteria would be qualified. So
great. Who are the two?
Yeah, Ortain has that information. I think she's online here.
I know one is the Waihi Coastal Dune. I can't remember the other one, council member. I will provide it to you in writing. I did mention it the last meeting we had, but I don't have it with me right now.
Okay, so thank you for that. I'm really curious of how this actually works, because these areas that they talk about, preservation, restoration, are sometimes very remote. And I would assume, that's why I was asking who these folks are. They don't have water lines that go into the area. Is this going to be for greenhouses? That's kind of where I would think it would make sense, like just greenhouses where you're growing, you're outplanting, or that's kind of what I think the water meter would attach to a greenhouse, not up in the field, right? Is that more of the scenario you're imagining, Director?
Yeah, that's a possibility. I mean, these would be any places where they would be connected to the county water system. So obviously, if it's something that's very remote, there's no county water nearby, that wouldn't be relevant. Right.
So what I see in my time in conservation, I used to work in this field. We would get a truck and fill it full of water and go water Kanepu'u out in the middle of nowhere on Lanai. There's no water lines out there. There's no water meters. So if this water rate were to happen, would that nonprofit have a water buffalo truck, fill it up at that low rate, and then go out in the field? Is that doable? Is that something you could work with them on, or is it just straight into the greenhouses?
Yeah, we could work. I mean, they would submit their plan for how they would use the water on what lands, and I mean, typically it would be through pipes. That would, you know, that was what we were envisioning. But certainly if it's something that they would want to, that they would qualify as restoring or conserving native species, and they wanted to use a water tanker, we could look at that as well, sure.
Okay. I didn't hear the bell, so correct me if I'm wrong, Chair, but preservation, restoration, conservation, a lot of shuns, and they all have their little different nuances. So why preservation, restoration, and not conservation?
Well, when we look at conservation, we're looking at how you use less water. That's kind of the typical term that we would use. And so we would be looking at that element of the plan to make sure that they're not wasting water, that they're conserving water as they perform their function. But in terms of restoration and preservation, we're looking at, that actually applies to the actual species of themselves. That's how we look at it from the water perspective.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting because, you know, we got zoning for conservation zone, you know, all the taxation. So it's always these nuances. So thank you for that response. Thank you, Chair. Out of time.
I don't see Chair Lee at the moment. Member Paulton, questions?
Thank you, Chair. I guess my main question is, if all the things that were identified as like a holdup or not accurate the last time that you brought this to committee has all been addressed.
I believe so. If you look on Granicus, there's several correspondences from the department, and it's the June 12th letter clarifies define native Hawaiian species habitat. So on Granicus, to my knowledge, all of the questions that we had in the last meeting have been answered in the various letters and correspondence.
Okay, and that concludes my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Member Rollins Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. And mahalo to the departments for getting back to us with the questions. So Native Hawaiian species habitat means habitat of endemic or indigenous species that arrived either by natural means, such as water, wind, or bird migration, or which were included in the approximately 23 species brought over by the first human migration to the Hawaiian Islands and which have adapted to native ecosystems. So I like that definition because that includes the canoe, as what we refer to as canoe crops that have become considered native to Hawaii. Mahalo for that information. Let's see, I don't think I have any further questions because your responses answered a lot of the, well, all the questions that we had at the last meeting that we had. And I think, you know, you and I attended the Haiku meeting on the East Maui Water Authority's community plan development the other week. Time is funny. And at that meeting, one of the kupuna talked about using water to make more water. And I see this action as using water to make more water. So I appreciate this initiative and support it. I don't have any other questions. Mahalo, Director. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you, Member. Member Sinensi, you have questions, comments?
Hello, Chair. I'm still looking at the letter, but my question at the last one was, is the rate higher or lower than the ag rates?
Director.
Sure, Chair. Yeah, the ag rate is $1.25 per 1,000 gallons. The general rate that they would have to pay if this not pass would be $8.34, and the rate they would pay if this does pass would be $4.98.
Still $4.98, but the general would be $8.94. You said
$8.34 is what businesses typically would pay if they don't, you know, other than if they qualify for this, then they would get quite a break from $8.34 down to $4.98.
And Member Senency, you can find it on page 5 of the correspondence.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Member Hodgins? Questions?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Water Department, for being with us today. I really don't have too many questions, except I do want to continue on Member Sugimura's line of questioning. She was specifically mentioning somebody up country and a new water meter. Can you just confirm that there would be a new water meter available for somebody up country if they wanted to do this?
Sure. I mean, if someone wanted to have a water meter specifically for this purpose, I mean, there would have to be sufficient water available for a new, for a new water meter, which is an issue up country, as you know.
That's my question.
And then they would have to pay the cost of the new meter. But if that was those two situations were met, then we could issue a new water meter.
Interesting. Okay. Other than that, happy to support. Thank you.
I don't have a question. I basically just want to commend the Water Department for your outreach and your being proactive and working with the community to for this type of endeavor. So is there a need for a second round of questions, members? Okay. Seeing no further discussion, we'll move on to decision making. The chair would like to entertain a motion to recommend passage of Bill 56 on first reading.
So moved.
So moved by Member Sugimura and seconded by Member Rollins Fernandez. To recommend passage of Bill 56, 2025 on first reading. Members, any discussion before I move on to my amendment summary form? Member Rollins Fernandez?
Oh, I'll hold until, I didn't know you had an amendment summary form. I'll wait till we.
Members, your chair would like to entertain a motion to substitute Bill 56 with the proposed CD1 version incorporating the amendments referred in the ASF description.
So move.
Moved by
Second.
Member Sugimura, second by Member Rollins Fernandez to substitute Bill 56 with the proposed CD1 version. Members, this ASF amends the bill's title, amends the bill's effective date to be retroactive to July 1st, 2025, replaces references to water use solely for habitat preservation or restoration with primarily, makes reference to the uses qualifying for the water rate and the term preservation consumer, internally consistent, indicates the entity responsible for determining whether best management practices are acceptable, defines native Hawaiian species habitat, incorporates non-substantive and technical revisions for clarity, consistency, and style. Is there any discussion?
Good job.
Seeing there's no further discussion, all those in favor raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Staff?
Chair, that's 7 ayes, 0 noes. Members Lee and Com excused. You're back on the motion passes and you're back on the main motion as amended.
Thank you, members. Now we're back to the main motion as amended. Any further discussion? Member Rollins Fernandez?
Mahalo, Chair. Mahalo for those amendments, and mahalo to the department for the work on doing this to recognize that these conservation efforts have not been given the same support in the form of a discounted water rate. Agriculture is a little more like profit-driven. Conservation work isn't profit-driven, but the return on investment in protecting our ecosystem services outweighs the amount that we invest in it. So I fully support the motion on the floor. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Staff?
Chair, that's 7 ayes, 0 noes. Members Lee and Com excused. The motion passes.
Thank you, members, and thank you, Director Stuffelbein and Corp Counsel and guest. This item will now move on to the full council's consideration. Members, this concludes today's Water and Infrastructure Committee meeting. Thank you for everyone for being here and for a great meeting. The time is now 2:36, and this meeting is now adjourned.